Spider-Man Brand New Day. I was really looking forward to this movie. I was super excited. This is probably the first time in a long time I was really, truly excited for something. Because I've always loved MCU Spider-Man. There are a lot of criticisms that people throw at MCU Spidey, but I've always loved him, okay? I love all the live-action Spider-Man, okay? I love Tobey. I love Andrew. He's my personal favorite, though. And I also love Tom. When it comes to stuff like Marvel, I think a lot of people are really strict about comic accuracy. I'm not super strict. I've read a lot of the source material, for Spider-Man specifically, but I've never felt like different interpretations needed to stick so closely to the source material. As long as you get certain foundational things correct, you can have creative liberties. You can tell an interesting story. You can tell a story that is different from what we see in the page. And that's what the MCU does with Spider-Man, and I think it tells a good story. But Brand New Day is important because the first three movies, the home trilogy, is essentially Spider-Man's origin story. So this movie is supposed to be the continuation, the payoff for his origin story. This is where we are supposed to see a far more mature Spider-Man in action. And I think we see that. But this movie isn't perfect. There's a lot I like about it, but there's some stuff I dislike about it too. And I think that the dislike can be very heavy in certain areas. Overall, I like this movie. I think it's overall a good movie. I think the good outweighs the bad. But the things that I don't like, the bad, it is very bad, okay? The bad can be, like, just, ooh, okay, I'm going to talk about it, alright? So first and foremost, I don't think I need to really dwell on the stuff that I like. The stuff that I'm most interested in talking about is the bad. But let's just kind of run down what I do like. I have not seen a lot of the Punisher series. I've only seen a little bit, but from what I could tell, Punisher was done pretty well here in this movie. I liked him in this movie. I think the back and forth dynamic with him and Spidey was pretty good. I think he also had a few good character moments of his own. Something I was very nervous about was MJ and Ned returning. I was super nervous because the trailers were making it seem like MJ and Ned were going to have a very big part to play in this movie, and they did, and I didn't want that at first, but after seeing the movie, I think some of those worries that I had have kind of been put to rest, because I like what they did with MJ and Ned here. I feel like the way they utilized those two characters was done in a good enough way. It didn't feel like it was taking away from the impact of No Way Home at all. Because it still feels like there's a lot of work to do for Peter before he's able to get reacquainted with his old life again. I know some people really wanted Peter to meet a whole new cast of characters and maybe have a new love interest and move on from his past life. And that would have been interesting to see, but I really don't care all that much. I don't hate Ned or MJ. As a matter of fact, I think that they were both at their best in this movie. So if we're doing some kind of slow healing here, I'm down for that. Like I said, I do think that we are getting a more mature Spider-Man here. I like Tom, I like Spider-Man, I like where he's at. I like the fact that this movie feels so alive. Yes, there are a bunch of other characters. Spider-Man isn't technically alone in this movie. There are other characters. You got Bruce Banner, you got Elena, you got Punisher, and all these cameos and guest appearances. But I don't think they feel out of place. As a matter of fact, I like the fact that there are so many people, there are so many characters in this movie because it feels alive. It feels like a comic book. And something I have always found a bit weird is that people kind of like want to have their cake and eat it too. People will oftentimes criticize MCU Spider-Man for not being alone. They want him to interact less with other characters. But at the same time, isn't that why we were all excited to see Spider-Man come to the MCU? Because he could get to interact with the characters in that universe? We wanted to see a new live-action Spider-Man in this new live-action Marvel universe, so that he could interact with these other characters that we love so much. We've already seen other film adaptations of a lonely Spider-Man. We've seen that with Tobey and Andrew. I like the fact that the MCU did something different. And at times, sure, the cameos and guest appearances can feel out of place and unnatural. But overall, this movie does it really well. This movie makes it feel natural. I also think it's really stupid when comic book movies that are in like big connected universes, right? I think it's really stupid when when they have these big events, like in No Way Home, for example. As a matter of fact, I mean, you had people in New York at the time, like Hawkeye, maybe the Falcon and the Winter Soldier were around somewhere. You maybe got Yelena, I guess, possibly. But you have people in the vicinity that can help. So when Peter Parker goes on live TV and announces that he is at the Statue of Liberty and he's going to be luring villains towards him so that he can face them. And as far as you know, he's all alone. I feel like, wouldn't somebody be there to see that and maybe, think, hey, I remember this Spider-Man guy. There's a lot going on about him, but it seems like he's trying to do something good here. Maybe I should help. That kind of stuff always just feels so weird. It's just how movies work, I get it, but it just feels weird. So I like the fact that this movie feels so interconnected. It feels like a living universe with living people that are all interacting with each other, and I love that. It doesn't feel forced, it feels natural. Also, obviously, the fight choreography, the visuals, the costumes, all of that looks amazing in this movie. I still can't get over the costume. Spider-Man looks fantastic. But with the good kind of pushed aside, let's talk about Jean Grey. Jean Grey is by far the weakest part of this movie. They try very hard to make Jean a sympathetic villain, but she's not. She's just a villain in this movie. She's just an evil person who likes hurting people and does evil shit. Some people talk about how she's, using telekinesis and she, possesses people or whatever and uses a mind control, and just, how inherently I guess that's an evil thing for her to do, which I technically, in a way, yeah, I guess it's morally kind of iffy to mind control people. But I've seen people kind of dial that up to 11 and compare it to something like the One Wish Willow from Obsession. And I think that is an extremely disingenuous comparison to make. When you're being controlled by the One Wish Willow, you're still sentient. You can still tell what's going on. You're still fully aware. It's explained in Brand New Day that when Jean mind controls somebody, their brain just goes blank and they don't remember anything that happened to them while they were under her influence. So it's just really jarring and kind of confusing, but it's not like, you are fully aware while you are doing something awful that you would not be doing, and you are aware that somebody has infiltrated your mind. You are not fully aware that somebody is taking advantage of you. So I think that is a bit of a disingenuous comparison to make. But overall, no, Jean's still a bad guy. She's still evil. Okay, let's see. She drives a tank through the streets of New York, firing willy-nilly, and she nearly runs over a bus full of people and a child, and the only reason she doesn't kill all of those people is because Spider-Man stopped them from dying. Spider-Man saved them. Why did she even need to drive that tank through New York, by the way? No idea. That accomplished absolutely nothing but get Spider-Man on her tail. There was no reason for her to do stuff like drive a tank through New York or release the Scorpion. None of that, mattered in the end for her. She didn't need to do any of that. She's a telepath. She can just mind control important people, infiltrate the Department of Damage Control, and find a way to free her sister some way like that. She didn't need to be so aggressive and violent. She also mind controls people, and one of the people that she mind controls, she backs him out into the street and lets him get hit by a car. He's either severely injured or dead, okay? There's no other way to go about that. She also takes control of a security guard and nearly makes him jump off a roof and kill himself. She mind controls MJ and plays mind games with Peter, using her, which is just awful, horrible. What? Peter even says in the scene that what she just did is basically unforgivable, but then later I guess it becomes forgivable. Let's just forget about that. By the way, what she did can be considered a form of sexual assault on both MJ and Peter. The same thing happened when the shapeshifter from The Boys was pretending to be Starlight and, she had sex with Huey, but, Huey didn't know it was the shapeshifter, so basically he got, sexually assaulted or can I say the R word on YouTube? I don't want to say grape. That's stupid. I hate when people say that. But I don't know if I'm allowed to say the R word on YouTube, so I'm just gonna say it. So Huey basically got like graped. What was it? What was it, like 20 times? Something like that. Yeah. So it's the same. So it's like a similar scenario to what happened in The Boys, except it wasn't sex. Obviously, it was just the kiss, but that's still sexual assault. And then after Jean commits needless sexual assault, she tries to throw MJ off a roof, and then she unleashes the Hulk and has absolutely no remorse about that. So, like, yeah, she's pretty evil. And I throw the Hulk in there because not only can the Hulk cause a lot of collateral damage that might get people killed, but this would also be extremely traumatic for Bruce Banner. Remember, the guy that wanted to kill himself because of the Hulk. So, yeah, Jean is just an awful person. I don't care how you try to put it. Her redemption arc in this movie is just bullshit. She is evil. She's a villain in this movie. And look, I'm not saying that Jean can't have a redemption arc. Loki had a redemption arc, but he was evil, and the movies acknowledged that he was a bad person. But slowly, over the course of multiple films, Loki grew as a character and became a protagonist. You could have done that for Jean. Jean could have started out as an awful person, but then slowly changed over time, over the course of multiple films. I don't understand why that's so hard. But yeah, aside from Jean, Brand New Day is a pretty good movie. I would give it a 7 out of 10. When it comes to stuff that I like, I find it a lot harder, unless I'm like writing a script or whatever, but I don't really care enough to do that for this movie. Unless I've thought a lot about it, I find it a lot harder to talk about things that I like about something and explain why it works so well and why I like it. I find it a lot easier to criticize things and to, tear bad things apart and tear apart bad aspects of something, even if I think the overall product is good. So that's kind of what's happening here. Don't take this as like a full hate video towards Brand New Day, because I like the movie. I think overall it's fairly good, but I just think the Jean Grey aspect pulls like my rating down by quite a few pegs. Because if the people writing and directing this movie can't recognize that what Jean did is just wrong, that she is objectively a killer, that she is objectively a bad person, then I don't get it. I mean, this kind of thing was touched on in Guardians of the Galaxy as well. Just because you have a dead person, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to go killing other people willy-nilly. Just because something bad happened to you doesn't mean you're allowed to do bad things to other people and get away with it. This is how villains work. This is how villains work. We've been taught this, like, time and time again. Even in Tom Holland's previous Spider-Man movies. The Vulture got screwed over, right? Adrian Toomes, he got screwed over, so he started doing bad things to other people as a result. But that's not how that works. You can't do that. Mysterio got screwed over by Tony Stark. So then Mysterio started doing bad things to other people, but you can't do that. That isn't how that works. Electro, Max Dillon, in, I guess, No Way Home and TASM 2, he felt like an outcast in society. He was treated poorly and he felt betrayed by Spider-Man, even though he misinterpreted what was going on. But just because you feel like something bad has been done to you, that does not give you the right to do bad things to other people. That's what Jean needs to learn here, but she doesn't learn that. She's, like, practically rewarded for her bad behavior. She's let off with a slap on the wrist. And it's kind of unfortunate because everything else about this movie works really well, in my opinion. And I like it a lot. But that ending, that one stupid twist with Jean Grey suddenly becoming the sympathetic villain, that just kind of drags the rest of it down a little bit. If Jean was handled better, I would give this movie like a 9 out of 10, or, I'm hesitant to ever give anything a 10 out of 10, but maybe even a 10 out of 10, depending on how it was handled. But, I just can't. I gotta bring it down to a 7 out of 10, maybe 6.5, but I'm kind of sticking more towards 7. But overall, that's my yap sesh done. I just had to kind of get my feelings out on Jean Grey. I know a lot of people on YouTube have already done it, but I just felt like venting that somewhere, so I'm venting it on YouTube. Alright, yeah. There you go. Those are my thoughts. Bye bye now.